There are moments in your life that don't announce themselves. They don't arrive with music or warning. They slip into your coat pocket while you're standing at the altar waiting to marry the wrong woman. I didn't find the note until the ceremony was over. I had my back to the pews, facing the minister, one hand already in my pocket the way I always stand when I'm nervous. And I felt it, a small folded square of paper. I thought it was the ring box receipt. I thought it was a receipt from the florist. I didn't pull it out. I kept it there under my fingers through the whole processional, through my vows, through the applause. It wasn't until we were in the hallway between the sanctuary and the reception room, 30 seconds before I was supposed to walk into a party celebrating the rest of my life, that I finally looked. I unfolded it. 5 words. Handwritten in blue ink, slightly smudged at the corner like whoever wrote it had pressed too hard. Don't marry her. Marry me tonight. I stood in that hallway with the paper in my palm and the whole world going quiet around me. And I understood, in the way you understand something you've somehow always known, exactly who had slipped it there. My name is Calvin Hart. I'm 31 years old and I live in Brenham, Texas, a small town that smells like bluebonnets in the spring and hot concrete in August and wood smoke in the fall. I work as a landscape surveyor for a civil engineering firm out of Austin. I drive out to undeveloped land and I measure it, its boundaries, its slopes, its potential. I spend most of my days outside, reading the shape of things. I have always been better at understanding the land than I am at understanding people. I grew up in Brenham. My parents still live on the east side of town in the same yellow house where I learned to ride a bike. My father is a retired school teacher. My mother tends a kitchen garden the size of a small park. I am their only child and they have always been kind to me, maybe too kind, because I grew up believing that if you were decent and patient and showed up when you said you would, things had a way of working out. For a long time, I believed that about Noel Calloway. I met her 4 years ago at a mutual friend's birthday party in Austin. She was from Dallas, sharp and polished and funny in a way that made whole rooms tilt toward her. She laughed at everything I said and asked me real questions and gave my shoulder a squeeze when she said good night, and I drove home that evening feeling like I had left some vital piece of equipment at the site and needed to go back for it immediately. We dated for 2 years. It was good. It was steady. She moved to Austin for her consulting job. I was already there half the week. We fit into each other's routines the way furniture fits into a room. Nothing was designed together, but you stopped noticing the seams after a while. I proposed in my parents' backyard on a Saturday evening in late October. She said yes. My mother cried. My father shook my hand twice. We set a date a year out. Here is the thing I did not understand until I was standing in that hallway with a note in my hand. The wound in me was not from a broken heart. It was from something quieter. It was from the 3 or 4 times I had caught myself looking at Elise Marsh across a table and feeling something I had no name for and no right to, and then looking away so fast I got dizzy. But I am getting ahead of myself. The wound I will tell you about now is this. I was engaged once before Noel. Her name was Dana. We were 26. She left because she said I was too contained, her word. She said loving me was like standing outside a building with all the lights on inside and never being let through the door. I thought she was being unfair. Then I spent the next 5 years of my life wondering if she was right. Noel never complained about that. She said I was steady. She said steady was what she wanted. I told myself that was the same as love. Elise Marsh had been my friend since we were 7 years old. We grew up on the same block. She moved in across the street the summer before second grade, a quiet kid with brown hair and paint on her fingers who stood in her driveway looking at our neighborhood like she was trying to memorize it. I walked over and asked if she wanted to see the creek behind the park. She said yes. We were friends from that afternoon forward, the kind of friends who don't require explanation. She went to UT Austin for design. I went to Texas A&M for civil engineering. We lost each other for a few years the way people do when they're 20 and the whole world feels suddenly enormous. Then she moved back to Austin at 25, and we found each other again like a habit you'd let slip, and then remembered without effort. She worked as a graphic designer for a small firm near South Congress. She made things beautiful, labels, logos, storefronts, the visual language of small businesses that wanted to look like they mattered. I'd been to her apartment 100 times. We had our own table at a diner on South Lamar where we went on Sunday mornings when neither of us had anything better to do, which was most Sundays. She knew Noel because I introduced them, and they got along well enough. Polite, warm, the way two people are when they share someone in common and don't need anything more than that. When Noel and I got engaged, Elise came to the celebration dinner and hugged me and said she was happy for me and looked me directly in the eyes when she said it. I remember noticing that she looked at me for only a second and then looked away. I remember filing that away somewhere I didn't go. She was a bridesmaid. Noel had asked her because she liked Elise, and because I mentioned once that Elise was important to me, and Noel was good about things like that. Elise said yes with the same warmth she said yes to most things. She showed up to the dress fitting and the bachelorette planning meeting and the rehearsal dinner the night before. She was present and helpful and smiled at all the right moments. I didn't know, until the note, what any of those appearances had cost her. The ceremony was held at a converted ranch estate 30 minutes outside of Austin, all limestone and cedar and old live oaks that had been there longer than any of us. It was a Saturday in late April, warm but not hot yet, the kind of Texas spring morning that makes you forget July exists. I was in the groomsman's room by 9, wearing a rented suit that fit me well enough and feeling the particular brand of calm that is actually just the silence before you decide whether or not to panic. My best man, my cousin Will, kept handing me water and telling me I looked fine. "You nervous?" he asked. "A little," I said. "Good," he said. "You should be a little." The processional started at 11. The bridesmaids walked in pairs down the aisle in pale blue dresses. I stood at the front and watched them come. Will's wife, his college friend, two of Noel's sorority sisters, and then Elise, who was last. She walked alone because the bridesmaid pairs had been odd-numbered. She came down the aisle with her hands loosely clasped in front of her and her head up, and she did not look at me. She looked at the window behind me. She looked at the flowers on the end pews. She found a point somewhere above and behind my left shoulder and fixed her gaze there. I watched her take her place and I thought, she looks like a person who has decided something. I didn't know what it meant. I put the thought away. The ceremony took 35 minutes. I said my vows. Noel said hers. Her voice was clear and steady and her eyes were bright. She meant what she said. I meant what I said. We were both telling the truth as we understood it in that moment, which is, I think now, the saddest possible version of a lie. When the minister said we were married and the guests applauded and Noel and I kissed and turned to face the room, I found myself scanning the faces without meaning to. My mother dabbing at her eyes. My father standing straight with his arms at his sides, proud and a little undone. Will grinning, Noel's parents, her college friends. Elise still in her spot, hands still clasped in front of her. She was clapping. Her face was arranged into something that looked like happiness from a distance. We walked up the aisle. I kept my eyes forward, and somewhere in the moment of sitting down, standing up, being guided toward the hallway for photographs, somewhere in all of that, she had pressed a note into my coat pocket without my noticing. I read it 3 times. Don't marry her. Marry me tonight. I stood in the hallway for a long moment with my back against the cool plaster wall and the sound of the reception filtering through the closed doors ahead of me. Someone was giving a toast. There was laughter. A piece of my life was already happening 30 feet away. I put the note back in my pocket. I went through those doors and I smiled at everyone, and I danced with Noel, and I ate the dinner that had been planned for months, and I clinked glasses with strangers, and I did all of the things you do at your own wedding when you are trying to understand whether the ground under your feet is still solid. Elise was across the room all evening. She laughed and talked to the other bridesmaids. She danced once with one of Will's friends. She ate her dinner and helped Noel bustle her dress and did everything she was there to do. She did not look at me once. I looked at her more times than I could count. Around 9 in the evening, I stepped outside to the stone terrace for air. The sky was dark and wide and full of stars the way it only is away from the city. I stood at the railing with both hands gripping the edge and I took the note out again. Don't marry her. Marry me tonight. There was a question I already knew the answer to. I had known the answer for a long time. I had just refused to say it out loud to myself because saying it would have required me to examine what I had built and decide whether it was real. I stayed outside for 5 minutes. Then I went back in. The next morning, Noel and I were supposed to leave for our honeymoon, a week in Colorado mountain air, long hikes, the kind of trip that looks like a marriage being built. We were staying that night at the hotel attached to the venue, and I lay in the dark next to my wife of 11 hours staring at the ceiling with a folded piece of paper on the nightstand, and a feeling in my chest I had no right to call love and could not honestly call anything else. Noel was asleep. She slept the way she did everything fully, without conflict. I lay there and understood in the quiet, certain way you understand things when there is no one to argue with, that I had made a mistake. Not about Elise, about myself. I had spent 4 years walking alongside this woman and telling myself that the warmth I felt for her was ordinary friendship, and that the way she made me feel like the lights inside the building were on and I was finally inside it was something any good friend might give you. I had put the door shut on myself and handed someone else the key. I got up at 2 in the morning and sat in the chair by the window. I took the note out. I looked at it for a long time. 5 words, slightly smudged at the corner. I did not do anything with it that night. I spent the week in Colorado trying to be present. Noel was easy company. She was engaged and warm and happy in the particular way of someone who had gotten what she planned for. We hiked and ate good food and stayed up late talking about the future, the house we wanted to find, the neighborhood, whether we wanted to be on the east or west side of the city. I participated in all of it. I was not unkind. I did not withdraw, but every night after she was asleep I took out my phone and looked at the texts I had not sent to Elise, the ones I had written and erased and written again. I sent her one finally on Thursday evening. I said I found it. She did not reply that night. The next morning, one message: I know, I'm sorry, forget it. I stared at that for a long time. I typed back, I don't think I can. She didn't answer again, and I didn't push. Because I was on my honeymoon, and I knew what I was feeling, and I had not yet decided what kind of man I was going to be about it. We came home to Austin on a Saturday. Noel went back to work Monday. I went back to work Monday. We looked at 3 houses that first week and put an offer on a 4th-floor condo in East Austin that had big windows and a second bedroom we agreed would eventually be something else. I called Elise on a Tuesday evening. Picked up on the second ring, which told me she had been waiting and also that she had not decided yet what to do about that. Hey, she said. Hey, I said, a pause, the easy quiet that has always lived between us now complicated. I meant what I said in the note, she said, and I know that was wrong. You were standing at the altar. Why did you wait until then? I asked. Why not before? She was quiet for a moment. Because before I kept telling myself I was misreading it, she said. I kept telling myself it was just, I don't know, that I was the kind of person who mistakes closeness for something more. And then you were standing there and she was walking toward you and I couldn't. Her voice was even, careful, the way her voice got when she was working very hard to hold something. Why didn't you say anything when I got engaged? What would I have said? Congratulations, also I've been in love with you for 4 years. 4 years. She said it plainly, like a fact that had stopped embarrassing her. I did not say anything for a moment. Elise, you don't have to, Calvin, you're married. I didn't send that note so you'd do anything. I sent it because I needed you to know, and now you know so. So, I said. She laughed softly. It was not a happy sound. I'm looking at jobs in Portland, she said. There's a firm up there that reached out. I think I might go. Something in my chest moved. When? End of next month if I take it. Are you taking it? A pause. Probably, she said. Yeah. We stayed on the line for another few minutes, talking about nothing in particular, her current project, something funny that had happened at her office, whether the diner would still be around by the time one of us was back in the mood to go. Ordinary things. The language of people who are trying to say that the friendship still exists even if everything in it has shifted. She said good night. I said good night. I sat in my car in the parking garage of the condo building for 12 minutes before I went inside. I want to tell you I handled what came next well. I want to tell you I was calm and measured and took the appropriate amount of time. I did not. I told Noel on a Thursday. We were in the kitchen making dinner. She was chopping onions and I was standing at the counter, and I started talking in the way I always start when there is something I need to say and no clean way to say it: slowly, with long pauses, working toward the thing. She set down the knife before I finished. She had known something was wrong. She told me later she had known since we came home from Colorado that I had been present and kind and somewhere else the entire time. Noel was perceptive. One of the things that made her good at her job was that she read rooms quickly. She had been reading this one for 2 weeks. "Is it someone I know?" she asked. "Yes," I said. She held my gaze, and I saw in her face not devastation or not only devastation but also a kind of exhausted recognition. "Elise," she said. "Yes," I said. She sat down at the kitchen counter. She was quiet for a very long time. Did anything happen?" "No," I said. "Nothing happened. I didn't know until the wedding. I mean, I knew something, I just hadn't let myself know it." Noel pressed her hands flat on the counter and looked at them. "She slipped you a note," she said. "It wasn't a question. I saw her at the ceremony. I saw her put something in your pocket." She paused. "I thought it was a joke. I thought it was something funny, like a note from you to me. I didn't let myself think." The grief in the room was quiet and enormous. We had not been a bad couple. We had not fought often or treated each other meanly. We had simply been two people who fit into a shape without asking whether the shape was right, and now someone had asked and the question could not be taken back. She cried. I did not feel like I had the right to comfort her, but I sat near her and I stayed. She asked questions and I answered them honestly. She told me through tears that she was furious, that she felt humiliated, that she wished I had known sooner so she hadn't had to find out now. "Your mother's going to ask me why," she said. "I'll tell her," I said. "I'll handle all of it. I'm not going to let you take any of it." She laughed bitterly. "That's very decent of you." "Noel, I know," she said. "I know you're sorry." She asked me to leave that night. I went to Will's. I sat in his guest room and stared at the wall and thought about the particular misery of hurting someone who did not deserve it. It was Patricia, Noel's mother, who made the weeks after harder than they had to be. Patricia Brent was a woman who had spent her whole life building a social structure around her family with the precision of an architect. Her children's accomplishments, their relationships, their marriages, these were not private matters. They were the architecture. And my departure had taken a load-bearing wall out at the ground floor. She called me twice, which I did not answer. She called my mother, which was worse. She wrote Elise a letter, an actual letter, mailed to her design firm that was 6 pages long and contained phrases like selfish interference and deliberate predation that my mother relayed to me with a tight expression and said only, "She's in pain." The letter found Elise on a Thursday morning. She texted me that evening. She didn't tell me the contents. She sent only, "Patricia found my office address." I called immediately. She picked up on the second ring. Her voice was steady but thin, the particular steadiness of someone who had been sitting with something difficult for several hours before deciding to acknowledge it. "How bad is it?" I asked. "It's pretty bad," she said. 6 pages. She wrote 6 pages. A pause. "She's not wrong about some of it. Elise, I mean it. I put that note in your pocket at your wedding. I've had a lot of time to think about what kind of person does that." "A person who was terrified," I said. "A person who wanted what she wanted badly enough to risk it anyway," she said. "Which isn't automatically noble. Calvin, she lost her marriage. I know you were the one who made the choice, but I handed you the thing that made you choose." She paused. "I keep thinking about her face at the reception," she said. "She was so happy. She was so genuinely happy." "She was," I said. "And I was too, in the way you can be happy about something that isn't quite right. It wasn't performance. It wasn't all the way in." Silence. "I need to know," I said, "whether you've actually taken the Portland job." A pause. "I signed the offer letter," she said, "last week." "Before or after the letter from Patricia?" "After," she said. "She didn't cause it. I had already been thinking about going. Before the wedding, I was trying to. It was a way of leaving cleanly. Watch you get married and then put 2,000 miles between myself and the feeling." I let that sit. "Are you still going?" I asked. "I don't know," she said. "I don't know what any of this is. You separated from your wife 2 weeks ago. I don't want to be the rebound you chose in a moment of crisis and regret." "You're not," I said. "You can't know that yet," she said. "Neither can I." She was right. It was fair. It was the kind of clear-eyed thing Elise had always been able to say that I was still learning to say to myself. "Okay," I said. "What do you need?" She thought about it. "Time," she said. "Honest time. Not this hovering version of things. I think we both need to sit in what actually happened and make sure we're seeing it clearly." "That's fair," I said. "It's not a no," she said, and her voice had dropped to something quieter. "I want to be really clear about that." "Okay," I said. "Okay," she said. Patricia came to my office. I hadn't expected that. She showed up on a Wednesday afternoon, unannounced, in the waiting area of my firm's Austin office. My assistant sent me a message that said simply, "Woman in the lobby says she knows you." I went down. She was sitting very straight in one of the lobby chairs in a gray suit, her handbag on her knee. She looked like she had not slept in a while. Her eyes were red, but her expression was composed in the way of someone who has decided to be composed by sheer force of will. "Mrs. Brent," I said. "Calvin," she said. "Sit down, please." I sat. She studied me. Then she said, "I want to understand what I did wrong." I was quiet. "Not you," she said. "I'm not here to yell at you. I did that with Elise. I've been doing a lot of that. Noel's father says I need to stop." She paused. "I want to understand what I missed." "I don't think you missed anything," I said. "I think I missed things." "Noel says you were kind to her," she said. "She says you never lied to her. She says she thinks you were trying to do the right thing the whole time and just didn't know what the right thing was." "That's generous of her," I said. "She's a generous person," Patricia said. "She got that from her father." A beat. "She also says," Patricia continued, "that I planned this wedding like it was something I was building rather than something Noel was building, that I pushed the timeline, that I made it harder for her to look honestly at things because I was so committed to the outcome." She pressed her lips together. "I've been thinking about that. I think," I said carefully, "that everyone involved wanted the right things for the right reasons and still arrived somewhere wrong." Patricia looked at me. "I blamed that girl," she said. "Elise, I wrote her an unkind letter." "I know," I said. "I was afraid," Patricia said. "That's what my husband said. He said I was afraid of losing the future I had planned, and I took it out on her. On you." She smoothed the fabric on her handbag. "I don't think she set out to destroy my daughter's marriage. I think she was just in love with you, which is its own kind of helplessness." Something in my chest was very quiet. "How is Noel?" I asked. "Sad," she said. "Angry, getting better." Patricia rose from her chair. "Don't hurt that young woman again, either of them." She left without another word. I sat in the lobby for a few minutes after she was gone, thinking about the shape of love when it goes wrong and the way the people around it catch the debris. Patricia had spent 25 years of motherhood protecting Noel's future with everything she had. That wasn't cruelty. It was fear. The fear of a parent who could feel the ground shifting and had nothing to hold on to. Understanding someone's motive doesn't fix what they did, but it changes the shape of the anger. In June, I drove to Elise's apartment on a Sunday morning with 2 coffees from our diner. It was the first time I had been there since before the wedding. She answered the door in an old T-shirt and jeans, hair loose, her living room visible behind her with all the comfortable, specific clutter of a person who lives genuinely in their space. Designed sketches pinned to a corkboard, 3 half-finished mugs on the table, a stack of library books on the windowsill. She looked at the coffees. "You went to the diner without me," she said. "I didn't go in," I said. "Drive-through. They have a drive-through now. Since March, apparently." She stepped back and let me in. We sat at her kitchen table with the window open and the June air coming through, and for a long while we talked the way we had always talked, easily, without agenda, following the thread wherever it went. She told me about the Portland job. She had deferred it. They had given her until August to decide. "Why'd you defer it?" I asked. She wrapped her hands around her coffee. "Because I didn't want to run to Portland and then spend the whole time there wondering if I ran away from something real," she said. "And because I think I deserve to find out." "What do you think you might find out?" She looked at me over the rim of her cup. Her eyes were steady and a little amused and a little frightened. "Whether 4 years of feeling something was a story I told myself," she said, "or whether it was just the truth the whole time." "Elise," I said. "Yeah," she said. "I think it was the truth," I said. "I think I knew it on some level for a long time and I was too scared to look at it directly. Dana told me once that I kept the lights on but never let anyone in. I think she was right. I think I was doing it to you too, letting you close enough to feel it and then drawing the line." She was quiet. "Not because I didn't want you in," I said, "because wanting it scared me more than not having it." She set her coffee down. She was looking at the table. "I didn't leave enough space for you to be honest," she said. I was so determined to be fine about it, the engagement, the wedding, all of it, that I think I made it easier for you to pretend. You slipped me a note at my wedding. She laughed, reluctant. After 2 years of pretending. You were terrified. I was, she said. I wrote 4 different versions of that note. The last one I wrote in the parking lot of the venue on my phone and transcribed it onto paper. My hands were shaking. I looked at her. You could have thrown it away, I said. You were in the parking lot. You could have gotten in your car and driven home. I know, she said. I walked to the door about 6 times before I went in. Why didn't you leave? She was quiet for a moment. Because I thought if I say nothing, he marries her and then it's really done. And in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, we're having coffee somewhere, and I'm watching him be someone else's, and I will have spent my whole life wondering what would have happened if I had been brave enough to say the truth. She looked up at me. I didn't want to wonder, she said. I am going to tell you the rest quickly because it is the rest that matters, and it deserves to be said plainly. We did not rush. We went back to Sunday mornings at the diner. We went to a farmer's market in July and fought about whether a particular peach was ripe enough to buy, and she was right that it was, and I was wrong that it wasn't. We drove out to a lake east of Austin in August with her sister and her sister's husband and spent the day doing nothing in particular on a dock. I filed the necessary paperwork. Noel and I handled everything quietly, without lawyers taking shots at each other. She had moved back to Dallas by then, back to her family. She sent me a text in August that said simply, I hope you're both happy. I meant that. I believed her. In September, Elise canceled the Portland job. I did not ask her to. She came to tell me herself on a Tuesday evening at my apartment. She stood in my kitchen and said, I called them this morning. What did you say? I said I was withdrawing, that my circumstances had changed. Did they fight you on it? A little, she said. I think they'll be okay. I looked at her. Elise, I said. I have to ask you something. Okay, she said. You've been in love with me for 4 years, I said. And that whole time I was in a relationship, and then I was engaged, and then I was married. And you stayed, you kept showing up, you were my friend. Yes, she said. Was that painful? She thought about it honestly. The way Elise always thought about things, not to perform consideration, but because she actually wanted to get it right. Sometimes, she said. Not always. Sometimes it was just you. Being near you has always felt like the right place to be, even when it came with something I couldn't have. It was like asking me if it hurt to love my own life. She paused. Most of the time, no. Sometimes deeply, yes. I stepped toward her. I'm sorry for the deeply yes parts, I said. I'm not, she said. I think I knew what I was feeling was real because it hurt sometimes. Things that are nothing don't hurt. I took her face in my hands. I don't want to wait anymore, I said. Good, she said. I've waited long enough. And I kissed her, not the way you kiss someone at the start of something, nervous and performative, but the way you finally come through a door that has been locked from the inside and you realize you had the key the whole time. The note is in the top drawer of my nightstand, still folded, still slightly smudged at the corner. Don't marry her. Marry me tonight. I did not marry her that night. It took me almost a year to find my way clear to this. There were things I had to dismantle honestly, and people I had to look in the eye, and a fair amount of sitting in the dark with my own failings spread out in front of me before I understood what kind of man I wanted to be. But here is what I know now, standing in this life with Elise beside me. Love does not arrive on schedule. It does not care whether the timing is convenient or clean. It has been sitting in the room with you for years sometimes, and you have been looking just slightly past it. And one day someone is brave enough to press 5 handwritten words into your coat pocket and say, stop pretending you don't see it. We got married the following spring in my parents' backyard in Brenham. A small ceremony. My mother's kitchen garden in full bloom behind us. My father read a passage from a book he liked. Will stood beside me and did not say anything sentimental until afterward, when he found me alone by the fence and shook my hand for a long time and said quietly, I always thought it was her. Elise wore a simple dress the color of cream. She carried a few wildflowers she had picked from the edge of the yard that morning. She walked toward me across the grass with the kind of ease that comes from knowing exactly where you're going. I reached into my jacket pocket as she came close. Just habit. My hand found the edge of the folded note. I had carried it there since the first wedding, tucked into every coat and suit jacket, some piece of me needing to keep it close. She saw me do it. She knew what I was reaching for. She took my hand out of my pocket and held it. "You already know what it says," she murmured. "I do," I said. "And?" she asked. I looked at this woman who had been part of my life since we were 7 years old, who had loved me quietly and with patience, and then, when she was out of patience, with a handwritten note and trembling hands on a Saturday in April. "I'm here," I said. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." She smiled. The minister began. The bluebonnets were out along the fence. "Some truths wait a long time to be spoken, but they do not go anywhere. They stay folded in your pocket, smudged at the corner, warm against your hand, until the day you finally stop being afraid to read them."